to come to school. All right, Chapter 2, Section 4, equations with variables on both sides and equal signs. So suppose I have an equation 3x plus 6 equals 2x minus 7. Now normally we would just go ahead and highlight the variable, then isolate it by getting rid of the addition and the multiplication and whatever else is attached to it. But in this case, I have an x on the left and on the right. So what do we do first? Well, here's your steps. They're on the right-hand side. Okay, number one, get the variables out of parentheses. Well, do I have any parentheses in this equation? No. So right now it doesn't, we don't have to get it out of parentheses. But step 2, add or subtract to get the like variables on one side of the equation. Now, I don't care which x you add or subtract to whatever side. You just have to get them together. Now, for me, I like to avoid fractions and negative numbers as much as possible. It's not always possible. So, if it's not always possible, sometimes we have to deal with it. But in this case, we don't have to deal with a fraction or a negative number. Take the smaller number and subtract it from the larger number. That keeps a positive number. So, which is smaller, the 2 or the 3?
2.
2 is smaller, so subtract 2 x's from both sides.
Should be x plus 6 equals negative 7.
Subtract 2 x's from both sides. Because on this side, we have 3x minus 2x. How many x's do we have left?
1x.
1x, because 3 minus 2 gives me 1. And I still have x's, because you can't have x's and subtract 2 from it and get y's, or x squareds, or anything. You have the same thing left. Okay, so pretend when you're doing this, you have 3 x's in your hand, and you're taking away 2 x's. How many x's do you have left? 1x. Okay, or just x. If you don't want to put the 1 there, you don't have to, because the 1, technically everything is multiplied by 1. Okay, 1x plus 6 equals, now 2x minus 2x, I have 0 x's. So this just cancels out. And what are you left with? Negative 7. Now the equation looks just like all the other equations we've dealt with. I have one variable, and I need to get it by itself. I need to solve for it by doing SADMAP. Remember, subtraction and addition first, then multiplication, division, then exponents and parentheses. So I have plus 6. I have 1 times x plus 6. What do I get rid of first?
6.
Yeah, you're going to get rid of the 6. Now, why did I rewrite it like that? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because 1 times x is just x. Okay, I want the 1. I don't want the 1 there. So I rewrote it. Now I'm going to subtract 6 from the side. Because the opposite of addition is subtraction. Oops. So I'm left with x equals, now I have negative $7, and I'm subtracting, or I'm borrowing 6 more. Negative 13. X equals negative 13.
Now how would you check that?
How would I check that? We'll go back up into your original equation,
Should be 3.
okay, and plug in your x. I have 3 times x plus 6 equals 2 times x minus 7. Well, what is x supposed to equal?
Negative 13.
Negative 13. So take your negative 13 and plug it in for this x and this x. And let's do that. So I have 3 times negative 13 plus 6 equals 2 times negative 13 minus 7. Now, by order of operations, what do I have to do first? I don't have any variables. Yeah, you're going to do all multiplication first, right? PEMDAS. Now, since we're not solving the equation, we're just simplifying an equation without variables, we just have to do the multiplication first. There's no parentheses or exponents, so 3 times negative 13 gives me negative 39 plus 6 equals 2 times negative 13, negative 26 minus 7. Now, do I have any more multiplication left in the entire problem?
They're both equal to numbers.
No. So I had to do my addition and subtraction. Negative 39 plus 6. Well, if you owe somebody $39 and you pay 6 of them, you then owe them negative $33. Negative $26, you borrow 7 more, gives you negative 33. So negative 13 work for x?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. So yeah, that is how you check it. So if you, technically, you should get 100% on every single quiz when you do equations, because you can take that variable, plug it back into the original equation, and see if it works. If it doesn't work, that means you did something wrong. So if you miss one, you just didn't spend the time to check it. Good question.
We don't have to go through and show that it, like,
Sometimes. I'll make you check it sometimes, but not always. All right, let's try another one. Step 1, get the variable out of parentheses. Do I have any parentheses in this problem? No. So step 2, get the variables together by adding or subtracting the like side. So you'd subtract k from both sides. So I'm going to go to this side, subtract k. I have 1k minus 1k, gives me 0 k's, and I drop down my 1 on this side, equals 3k minus 1k is 2k's. Think about it. You have 2 or 3k's in your hand, and you take away 1k, you have 2k's left. Okay, so I have 2k minus 1. Now it looks just like the equations we have been solving, or the quiz you just took. You want to locate the variable, excuse me, locate the variable, k, and get rid of everything. Okay, remember SADMAP. Get rid of all the subtraction and addition attached to that variable first. So I have a minus 1. Brianna, how do I get rid of a minus 1? How do I get rid of the minus 1? You add 1 to both sides. I'm going to add 1 to this side and add 1 to this side. This side is going to cancel because negative 1 plus 1 gives me 0. And I'm left with 1 plus 1 equals 2 equals 2k. And then divide by 2. You guys are getting good at these.
Yeah, we had a lot.
You guys get 1?
Yep.
no,
I got all of it.
What's that? You should be writing this down. All right, let's try another one. Now, suppose you have an equation that looks like this. Write this down. Write this down. Step 1, get the variables out of the parentheses. Well, how do you get rid of parentheses? Distribute. Yeah, we heard a bunch of distributes. That was a long time ago. Do you think you remember how to do that?
No.
Hopefully. Okay, I'm going to take this number, I'm going to multiply it by each one. So I have 6 times A plus 6 times 4. What is 6 times 4? 24. Now I got rid of all the parentheses, but I have A's on both sides. Sure. Take 6A from both sides, not just one side. Take it from both sides. 9 A's minus 6 A's gives me 3 A's. Equals, still 24. 3 is attached to the A by multiplication. So how do I get rid of multiplication? The opposite of multiplication is division. So divide both sides by 3. 24 divided by 3? 8. Box in your final answer. You have it. Questions?
Do we have homework today?
Yes. What?
Yeah, the question.
Okay, let's try another one. Do you like this one better than the fraction one?
I got the game face on.
Well, guess what?
Oh, what
Because I
page
love
is
you all
it?
dearly.
That's what started.
Okay, you can do one of two things. You can either, when you get rid of the parentheses to get the variable outside of parentheses, you can distribute, or you can get rid of the fraction. There's only one fraction. So what would we have to multiply the entire equation by to get rid of that fraction?
5 over 1.
Yeah, just multiply everything by 5 over 1. Watch what happens. Okay, you can get rid of the fraction. If you multiply by the common denominator, which does just have one denominator, we multiply it by 5, so I have 5 times 5n plus 2 equals 5 over 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the rest in there. So you can see my green is where I'm putting in the 5. Yes, I can. Because these are my only 2 terms. I have 1 term and I have 2 terms. So I only have to put 2 5s in there.
It'll be 5
5 times 5 is what?
25.
25. And plus 2 equals, now what happens to these 5s?
Cancel out.
They cancel out. 1. And what's left on the top?
3.
3. You guys have done those to death.
Yeah.
Am I going too fast?
Yeah.
No, you're going too slow.
Okay. Now that I have no fractions and you guys don't start freaking out because we got rid of the fractions, how do I get rid of the parentheses? Step 1, get rid of the parentheses. Distribute. So I have 25 times n plus 25 times 2. So I have 25n plus 50. 25 times 2 is 50. 2 quarters is 50 cents. So I have 25n plus 2 times 25, 50. Equals, now get rid of this one. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 10n. 30n. Now I still have variables on both sides. Minus what? Yeah, subtract 25n from both sides. I took the smaller one so that I don't end up with a negative number. So I'm going to take 25n from both sides.
We do that every time.
I would, so you don't have to deal with the negative. Suppose, Nick, that I would do it the other way. Subtract 30n. Would I get the wrong answer?
No.
No. It doesn't matter which way you go. So if you would happen to go the wrong way and get a negative answer, that's okay. Okay? Just keep going. So I have 50 equals 15 plus what's 30n minus 25n? 5n. And what else is there? Positive 15. No. Now I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. Good, Nick. So I have 50 minus 15 is 35 equals 5n.
Then divide that by 12, that would be 7.
Very good. Divide it by 5 and that gives you 7. You with me, Ruki? Hopefully.
I'm still kind of maybe like start out with
I multiplied both sides of the equation by 5 to get rid of the fraction. Okay, I'll go back up to the top. Just like the entire whole week we spent last week, okay, we have a fraction here and we want to get rid of it. So what's the common denominator of 5? We just have one fraction. So it's 5. So I distributed this 5 in each part. And I put 5 in here and 5 in here so that I don't have to deal with the fraction because the 5s cancel out. Remember doing the tons and tons and tons and tons of those?
yeah, but still kind
They still kind of confuse you?
of, yeah.
That's okay.
But after that, then
Once you get to this point, okay. We'll work really hard at this part and you should be fine. Okay, I think there's one more. We'll try one more. Yeah. Okay, we'll try one more. First step, get rid of the parentheses. So 6 times 2y is 12. 6 times 2 is 12, and I still have a y. 6 times 1 is 6. I have 12y plus 6 equals 12y plus 6.
Y equals 0.
So let me ask you this. What do we usually do to solve an equation? We take one of the y's and get them together, right? So in this case, we would take both y's, and we would say, well, if I subtract 12y and subtract 12y, what's going to happen?
You're gonna add
Cancel out.
But then I'll get 24y and 24y. In order to get 12y to 0, I have to subtract 12y. So what happens on both sides?
Everything cancels out.
And I'm left with 6 equals 6.
Also equals.
Is that true?
Yes.
So what is possible for y?
0. Y equals 0.
Okay, y could be 0.
1.
Y could be 1. Because let me ask you, is 12 times 1 plus 6 equal to 12 times 1 plus 6?
Yes.
What about 12 times 2 plus 6?
No.
Well, if I say y equals 2,
Yeah.
that means 12 times 2 plus 6 equals 12 times 2 plus 6. Is that true?
Yeah.
24 plus 6 is 30. So, is there a y that doesn't work here?
No.
Can you think of one? Are you sure?
Maybe negative.
A negative? Okay, let's try a negative. So pick a negative one.
-5.
Okay, let's try y equals -5. So I have 12 times negative. Aren't you going to work?
I
-5
guess that worked.
plus 6 equals 12 times -5 plus 6. Does that work too?
Yeah, any number works.
Any number you can think of?
Yes, any number works.
1,272.
You think it would work?
Yep.
That'll work.
So what's the answer for this?
Any number works.
Any number. How do I write that in math?
One of them sideways.
What, Chris? Infinity?
Oh, I got
A
one.
sideways 8?
Yeah, one of them.
Or you could say y equals all real numbers. Any number you can think of that's real. Or you could say it could go to negative infinity or positive infinity.
What about like this squiggly?
Yeah, what was that thing supposed to draw on?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Equal
That
to.
means about.
The squiggly equal sign means about. These would be the answers I would accept. Or, in the book, I think they call this an identity solution.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Okay, have you heard that? 6 equals 6? Well, that's just an identity solution. Okay, so when you do your homework, they're going to say, in the problem, it says, determine whether each equation is an identity or whether it has no solution. Well, let me ask you this. Let's try, one more. So that would be an identity solution, right?
Yep.
Now let's look at this one. How do I solve this equation? I have two w's, and do I have any parentheses? No, so we don't have any parentheses to get rid of, but how do I get all the w's together?
Subtract 3.
So you could subtract 3, but then I still have w's on both sides.
I would
I
Subtract
have to
W.
get the w's together first.
That's 2 W.
How do I get, this is a positive w. How do you
Zero.
get this out of here? Yeah, subtract w. That's good. So I subtract w from both sides.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens? 1w minus 1w gives me what? 0 w's. So this one's going to cancel out. I have 0. I have 3 equals 6. Is that true?
No.
Is there ever a time that that's true?
No.
Does 3 ever equal 6?
Yes, you multiply it by 2.
But that's not what we're doing. So let me ask you, okay, suppose that I tell you, well, w is going to be 2. Okay, let's say w is 2. Well, does 2 plus 3 equal 2 plus 6?
No.
Does 5 equal 8? No. This is not true either. So guess what answer this one is? If the other one was all answers, this one would be
No answers.
no answers. Circle, that's empty set. Or you can put no solution. There's all different kinds of ways to put this. Or you can put W equals just something empty. An empty bracket. There's nothing that it can equal. Okay, those are all different ways that you might see, like if you were to take a test, you might see a circle of lines or an NS, and you might see this. Those mean the same thing. They all mean no solution. Okay? Now, let's try some of these on your own. In your book, so get out your book.